Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
My poor bottle is sweating up a storm. All right, as you can see, I am not Pastor Bill. He's at the General Assembly in Denver right now, along with Pastor Jake from the Warren First Church of God. And when Bill said he was going to ask Christy if she could find someone to speak today, out of my mouth shot, oh, I can do it.
Good for
It
you.
flew out so fast, I was shocked and thought, what am I saying? So, you guys are stuck with me today, and I'll try my best to bring you a message. It's not easy being up here. It's very nerve-wracking, and I am shaking like a leaf right now, and my heart is racing. But God's going to get us through this. So, Jeremiah 29:11 said, "For I know the plans I have for you, declared the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, and plans to give you hope and a future." I didn't know that verse years ago, and now it's just perfect. I got the message as God's message, and I'm praying He works through me. I kept asking Him to give me a message, and the only thing I kept hearing was, "Give them your testimony." So here we go. I can tell you a little bit about myself first. I'm an Air Force brat. My brother and I were born in Amarillo, Texas, and I've lived in Puerto Rico, Rome, New York, Plattsburgh, New York, and last Oil City, PA. My dad, on the other hand, lived everywhere. He had an amazing life. He was born in Pittsburgh, and he had 3 siblings, and he served in the Air Force for 20 years before retiring. He was also, a little fun fact was, he was a hurricane hunter. And that's why I have this big fascination with the weather. I love anything, if there's a storm and I know it's coming, I'll just cancel everything just so I can be home and keep tabs on it. My kids, I have all of their destinations where they live, and I can alert them to anything fun that's happening their way. I know I'm sick, but that's the way it is. If you see Facebook, you'll see me as Elsa the Snow Witch. Please don't be scared. I'm not a witch. But one of the people at the Warren Church, he was not happy with my weather reports. So he called me a snow witch, even in the summer. And then one of the little boys from Whitehall Camp, I was his, I used to do the dance for VBS there. I had 165 kids under my belt to show them how to do the dances. Well, he just couldn't believe that I was called a snow witch, so he told his mother that I should have a nice name, so Elsa. So I'm Elsa the Snow Witch. I did get to meet this guy after being his little dance person for over a week, and he almost fell over when he found out I was Elsa. So my dad, he passed away at the age of 55 of lung cancer. My mom is a retired registered nurse, and she grew up with 7 siblings in Oil City. And right now she's recovering from a total hip replacement, and she's 93 years old. She's doing very well. She loved her job, but after Dad passed, she was done working. So she retired in 1993 and has been on the go since. She often tells me she's busier now than she was when she worked. She wouldn't have time to do anything else. She's very involved with the battered women's shelter for 13 years. She got clothes together for the women and food stuff, and she did that for a long time. She's really something. She also volunteered at the ER to welcome patients in and just make sure they were comfortable and saw to their needs. My brother's name was Pat, and he got married to a wonderful woman named Dixie on July 18th. I really, I loved my brother, but we were never close, and he lived his own life, I lived my own life. And in saying that, it's a regret, because on July 18th, he got married, and I can't remember the year, but unfortunately the next day, on the 19th of July, he was diagnosed with melanoma, and he passed away on August 31st of that same year. I did find out that he was a Christian, before he passed. So that was a praise. And my Tynesta church at that time, they really didn't know me, but they were there for me, which I'll talk about them later on. A side note with the melanoma, I ask everybody, and I'll preach this to the day I die, don't lay out in the sun.
Right.
Don't do tanning booths. If you're going to be out in the sun, please wear sunscreen, because that's a hideous cancer to get. All right, I'm done with that. When my mother met my father, he was actually considering becoming a priest. And if he had followed that leading, I would not be here. My brother and I were raised Catholic and followed all the criteria to be one. We went to church, rain or shine. We had to be dead in order to skip church. We went to CCD, aka Sunday school. We did confession, communion, and confirmation, and I don't know if anybody's really familiar with the Catholic faith, but in order to receive communion, you have to go to confession, so you had to go to classes for that. And then you also had to confess your sins to a priest. And then the other thing was confirmation classes, and I really don't know a lot about that. I just know in order for Bill and I to get married, I had to be confirmed. And so Bill and I took classes for that, or otherwise they wouldn't have married us in the Catholic Church. When I look back at all of that, I really didn't know what any of that meant. My father used church more as a punishment. So I didn't have a lot of good things to say about church. I know I didn't want to go because I just didn't like all the rules and all that fun stuff. We were married at St. Joe's Church in 1981, and two of our children were actually baptized at St. Joe's, and the other daughter, the priest that baptized the first two, he moved to the Assumption Church in Oil City, and so we had Ellie baptized at that church. That was just something that you did. Can't explain why. My dad said they have to be baptized 2 weeks after birth, and so that's what we did. I met Bill when I was 15 years old, but the very first time I ever met him, my girlfriend and I and a bunch of people were all going to a dance. I don't know if they still do that in high school and junior high or middle school, whatever they call it now. But she had said that she was going to go with this really nice guy, and his name was Bill. And I really like him. And so by chance, they were walking up the sidewalk, and I yelled out Yvonne's name. And she said, "Oh, Angie, here's Bill." And so she said, "Bill, this is Angie." And Bill turned around and he looked at me, and then he turned the other way. So he actually snubbed me the first time I met him. I didn't think he was nice at all. I did meet him again when I was 15 years old at the YMCA. That was the place that I liked to hang out because I was on the swim team and the dive team. So where to practice was there. And he liked to shoot pool. And so I challenged him to a game of pool. He did beat me. He was very good. I could never beat him. I never beat him, ever. It was disgusting. But anyhow. But I did think he was really super nice guy. And he had a good sense of humor and wit. And that's what really drew me to him. But his sense of humor and mine are completely opposite. I have a very sick sense of humor, and I love The Far Side. If anybody knows what The Far Side is with Gary Larson, that guy just cracks me up. Bill, on the other hand, doesn't find him funny at all, but I do. Anyway, we got married when I was 19 years old, and he was 20. And the first 19 years I thought was great. We had 3 kids. I got to stay home for 7 years with the kids. We owned a beautiful home, and we had our own business. I finally went back to work as soon as our youngest child started school. And you probably don't know about this about me, but I love drugs. And what I mean by that is I worked in pharmacy for over 20-some years, 25 plus years, and I enjoyed that job immensely. I got to meet some really cool people, and I also got to, after I was saved, I actually got to pray with a lot of people that were very, very ill in that profession. But it was wonderful. But I did retire at the end of last year, December 31st, and I do enjoy my retirement and don't want to go back there. So, when things started spiraling downhill, and we found ourselves, because of the business, in so much debt that we were in some pretty serious trouble. We were big trouble, and our marriage was suffering from that. It was actually starting to fall apart. Neither one of us knew the Lord. We didn't have a church, no one to talk to. It was a very hard time for us. We didn't think we had anybody to talk to, but we really did. We just didn't know him yet. And I remember one night in April, I was around 40 at that time, and I was lying in bed, and I never felt so alone in my life. I was crying. I felt like I was the only person on this whole earth in a very dark, dark cave. And it was not pleasant to think about. Anyway, I was just hanging by one finger before I fell in a pit. And I don't know if anybody's ever experienced depression. It's not a fun place to go. And if my finger would have slipped, I probably wouldn't be here, because Satan was doing a lot of whispering in my ear, and I was actually to the point where I thought about ending it all. If you're ever to that point, please go see somebody, because it's not fun. But as I closed my eyes, I saw the most beautiful angelic figure and a peace that came over me. I can't even explain it, but I knew at that point that things were going to be okay. And I knew the Lord was reaching down, and he was actually comforting me. Though I really didn't know him, but even now I can see that figure just as plain as I'm talking to you this day. And as I was writing this, I've seen this figure the whole week that I've been working on this thing. It was just really beautiful. Matthew 28:20b says, and surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. Even when you're not saved, if you don't know him, he's right there. He's right there for you guys. I've always liked this poem, and I want to share it with you. It was by St. Patrick. It says, Christ with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ in me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me, Christ on my right, Christ on my left, Christ when I lie down, Christ when I sit down, Christ when I arise, Christ in the heart of every man who thinks of me, Christ in the mouth of everyone who speaks to me, Christ in every ear or every eye that sees me, and Christ in every ear that hears me. So I can still remember the day that I said to Bill that I was going to find a church somewhere. I knew I wasn't going to be going back to St. Joe's. That's not how I wanted to worship the Lord. I knew that there had to be something more out there that was going to bring me close to him. And so I started hunting for a church. So one night, Bill and I and all of our kids and my daughter's then boyfriend, Adam, was sitting around the dinner table, and I mentioned that I wanted to go to church. And at that second, it was going to be at St. Joe's. I hadn't really made up my mind that evening, but I thought about it just to get back into it. And all of my kids were moaning and groaning, and I don't know if any of you guys have ever experienced that, but they did not want to go. And I remember I looked at Adam and I said, Adam, do you and your brother and sister do this to your mom and dad when they're like, hey, do you want to go to church? And I said, do you guys moan and groan like that? And he's like, nope. And he continued eating. And I was so surprised at that. I had never seen anyone, a 17-year-old kid like that, he wanted to go to church. And I thought that was pretty darn cool. So he asked me and invited me to his church. 17 years old, and he did that. How many of us at this day, at our age, how many people have done that? Like, hey, why don't you come to our church? And this 17-year-old kid's like, yeah, come to our church. That was amazing. Anyway, so I could say that I did go the very next day, because this was on a Saturday that this discussion happened, but I didn't. I chickened out. I didn't go. I didn't go to church at all, and the kids were thrilled. But the next Sunday I did. And so Adam and his mom and dad met me right at the door of the Tionesta Church of God. And this is the one that was located right down in Tionesta, downtown. They have a new one now. It's up on the hill, up the Tionesta Dam Hill. So I walked into this place, and I was blown away, because when I walked in there, they had everybody that was a leader of the church, that they went up and then across, and then you met Pastor Randy and Sue Evans right over here. And every single one of those people welcomed me. Every single one shook my hand, welcomed me to the church. I was blown away. I could have cried. I've never, ever felt so welcome in a church in my life. And you guys do a great job. Like Butch, he's always welcoming people. You guys take time out, you visit with one another. If you see new people, I've seen people go up and say hi, welcome to the church, hope you come back. That means a lot to people. It meant a lot to me. So not only was Pastor Randy and Sue Evans there, but so was Pastor Earl Flick and his wife Teresa, and I don't know if you know them. But they're still, Pastor Earl and Teresa are still preaching. They're at Dayton Church of God, and I think Pastor Randy and Sue are hospice. They're doing hospice work. So I started going to Sunday school while I was there, and Teresa taught the class, and she asked me to read John 1. I had never really even looked at a Bible, and I at that point never read one. So nervously, I opened up my Bible, or the Bible they had loaned to me. Well, I didn't know that there was John 1, that there was 1 John 1, 2 John, and 3 John, because we never read the Bible. And the priest always read the scriptures, and Mom and Dad had one of those great big massive Bibles that you sit on the coffee table, but you don't look at it because you just don't. So at that point I was so embarrassed I could have crawled under the carpet. And those ladies took me under their wing, directing me to the right book. And that is what I call grace and mercy right there. And from then on, they were my sisters, because they were looking out for me, and they were going to show me how to do this. And I'm so grateful they did. Hebrews 4:16 says, let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. So last Sunday, this is a quick story. Bill and I were on our way here, and out of nowhere, this guy in a big black truck with a trailer and a ski jet or jet ski thing, I don't know what it was, pulled out right in front of us. And normally I'd be not happy, and Bill certainly wouldn't have been happy, but neither one of us said anything about it. We just let this guy go, and of course I had to say, like, well, that was stupid, but whatever. So anyway, so we followed him until we got to the cutoff where you go to Kane one way, and he's going to go the other way, to the right. And Bill rolled his window down at the stop sign. I am sinking down into the floor because I thought, this is it. He's going to let this guy have it. And Bill yelled out the window, hey, your strap is undone on your jet ski off your trailer. And I thought, that was so cool. That was such grace. He showed such mercy. He could have been a real idiot and not even mention it. The guy's jet ski would have fallen off, but he didn't do that. And that was Christ right there. That was me showing that Bill, it just blew me away. So I just wanted to show grace and mercy there. Anyway, after I got to this church, I never stopped going. I went all the time. I gave my heart to the Lord. I was baptized the next year. And I'm pretty sure that Bill thought I was crazy when I said I wanted to be baptized. Being a Catholic, you're baptized as a baby and you shouldn't need to be baptized again. My mother, on the other hand, was very upset with me. She kept telling me that she failed me as a mother. She was very disappointed that I left the church, the Catholic Church, but I knew in my heart that I needed to remain strong, and Jesus was with me, and He is my Savior, and I was going to follow Him no matter what. I was a completely changed person, and I still am today. Now, I hope I could tell you that things were all flowers after this huge change, but it was far from easy. Besides almost being shunned by my own mother, I also lost a lot of my friends that I grew up with. Some were even in our wedding. They could see the change, and they either didn't like it or they were threatened by it. But I had Jesus now, and there was no turning back. I asked Bill if he'd go to church with me, even just once. And at first he was adamant there was just no way he was going to go. So every Sunday I asked the kids if they wanted to go. Sometimes they did, and sometimes they didn't. Bill went mountain biking. He talked to God through his mountain biking, I guess. So I told the ladies in my Sunday school class about Bill, and now he didn't want to come to church, and that's when Teresa said, "We're going to pray him in." So that's what we did. Out of the blue one Sunday, Bill asked me what time church was, and I told him, and he went with me. I was so excited. He was also greeted with open arms and seemed to like it too. But his bicycling was his passion, and Sundays were his days. So every once in a blue moon, he would go to church, and us girls at Sunday school kept praying. One particular Sunday, Bill had come to church, and it was announced that the church was having a men's dinner, and they had a guest speaker that was going to be talking about hunting. Well, that's Bill's favorite thing. And I saw Bill look back at his buddy that he rode the mountain bikes with, and he decided he was going to go to that. So there was hope. There were still some Sundays he'd not come with me, and I was not going to push too hard, and us girls kept praying. Whenever you're trying to reach somebody to know Jesus, the last thing you want to do is push, because the more you do that, the more they're going to they're going to turn away and get away from you. You don't want to scare them. You just want to lovingly mention it every once in a while, just so they know you've planted the seed. Now you got to let God do your work. So finally one day I told him that the people were asking about him at the church, and they missed him being there. And I was being truthful too. And he said they don't even know me, and that I was just saying that to get him there. But he did start coming every once in a while, and I swindled him into playing his guitar while I wrote a poem at church. And that's when he started coming to church with me. He does play guitar. He loves to sing to the Lord, and if I could ever get him to do that, he'll be a nervous wreck, but he really loves to sing to the Lord, and maybe we can get him up here at some point. Anyway, I started reading my Bible every morning. I'd get up at 5 in the morning just so I could read my Bible. And boy, if there was anything that touched me, I went running up the stairs, whether Bill was sleeping or not, and I'd wake him up, and I'm like, God, listen to what this says. And it just floored me, some of the things I would read, the stories, and, well, I shouldn't say stories, I call them accounts, because they're not stories, they're for real, man, they really happened, so. But I'd wake him up, and he was actually starting to listen to me, which was really kind of neat. So, anyway, I wish I could tell you that our 3 daughters also started coming to church, but they didn't. Our oldest daughter doesn't believe and doesn't want anything to do with the church, even to this day. Our middle daughter knows the Lord, and her husband and 2 sons are Christians, and they are very involved with their church. They live down in Strasburg, PA. Our youngest daughter has her own beliefs and would voice her opinion on things she didn't agree with. Unbeknownst to us, she was gay, and I think you already knew that, but some may not, and she wanted nothing to do with the church. And that was one of the most difficult things that Bill and I had to go through. We love her very much, and yet we don't condone what she's doing. Bill bought a bunch of books about homosexuality and read them all, and I was just so darn mad. I was mad. I can't tell you how angry I was. And I didn't want anything to do with those books. None of it. I didn't want it. I couldn't believe this was happening. So God and I did a lot of talking. When she decided to get married, Bill and I almost fell apart. Our hearts were broken. Bill had a very hard discussion with her and explained that we do not in any way condone what she's doing, and that there would be some things that would be coming up that would be a challenge for all of us. Well, as you can imagine, when she asked if we would be coming to her wedding, we said no. We were really very saddened by that whole thing. It was a terrible time. I can't even explain. It was awful. I didn't want to be there. I couldn't believe she was doing this, and whatever. I just kept praying. We do love her and her partner. Her name is Emily. She's very, very nice. And they know where we stand, and we know where they stand. They have 2 little kids now. Veda's 4, and Rowan will be 2 years old this August. And they go on vacation with us. When we pray before meals, they're very respectful of that. And every once in a while, God does come up in conversations in front of them, and they don't come back at us or whatever, but they still hang with us, which is amazing because we're old and they're young, but whatever. Anyway, I've always felt really bad about not getting the kids into church in the early years. The Catholic Church is very, very strict, and I knew I didn't really want to raise them in that environment. Now, there's nothing wrong with the Catholic Church. I'm not dissing them at all. Some people find the Lord there, and they worship Him, and my mother, her friends, and that's their church. Like, this is my church, our church. I always hear about all the fun that everyone probably here may have had going to church camp and vacation Bible school, and there just wasn't that there. Youth group, they missed it all. And Bill and I missed it all as well. We got to miss the chance to watch our kids grow in the Lord. But I have to remember that God had and has all this planned out. Like, He knew this was going to happen. So I trust in Him. So I always remember Jeremiah 29:11. As Bill and I got more involved in the Tionesta Church of God, Bill was becoming led to become a pastor. And I was not surprised at all. When he got the call that the Warren First Church of God wanted us, we were so excited. I gave up my job of 15 years at Community Drug in Franklin, PA. I was making good money, and I had the health insurance for the family. We also still had the business, which was the Grand Rental Station in Seneca, PA. We had visions of being able to sell the business with God's help, and things would be great. Needless to say, our plans are not the Lord's plans. After 2 years of being at the Warren Church and Bill commuting all the time to Seneca to help us keep the business afloat, we ended up filing for bankruptcy. We had no way out. There was no way out. We owed so much money, it was ridiculous. And I would never, ever wish that process on anyone. Bankruptcy is not fun. It's horrible. And to watch my husband have to be humbled like that, it was bad. Very, very bad. But God blessed us immensely after, and we've moved past that time. No credit cards. None. Don't ever go that way. God's my number one, and He's also Bill's. All things are possible with Him. And I'm not sure if Bill showed you his analogy of the triangle, but here it is. He'll always build this. This is me, this is Bill, and this is God up at the top. And we keep crawling closer and closer to the Lord right up here. And that's what binds us together as a team. So I hope I haven't bored you too much.
No.
I do have one more thing to add. When Pastor Bill retired from the Warren Church, we were excited for the future. But when you leave a church that you've been with for almost 15 years, and now all of a sudden you don't have one, it's really sad. Like, people even for a pastor's wife, I have Bill, but I don't have a pastor. Thinking about it, I mean, I can bounce things off of Bill on my thoughts and stuff, but it was hard. It was very hard, and boy, I was gonna find us a church, man. I was starting to hit. We went to the Sugar Grove Methodist Church. We went to Pleasant Community Church. We just went to a variety of different churches, but it just wasn't the one. And this one day, I was driving home and I'm crying. I'm so sad. I can't find a place that I feel like I should be there. And I could hear God speaking to me, and He said, "Be still." So that's when I made up my mind that I just needed God to lead the way. It wasn't going to be me. I had to let Him do it. So as you can see, He brought us here, and I'm very happy. We both are. You've all been so kind and welcoming and wonderful to be with, and I thank the Lord for that. So with that said, I thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. I know it's fast. I'm sorry. I talk really quick too. I'm not like Bill. And I just wanted to share a little bit about myself, and I hope you weren't too bored. I'm so glad that Jesus saved me and that He loves me, and joy fills my heart. If I had to do it all over again, I would. Otherwise, I wouldn't have met all of you. So may God bless each and every one of you immensely.
Bless you, bless you, bless you.